Piali, peace, hello, my name is Lanika Easy with the Afro Puffs, and this is Art of Liberation, and welcome to my mental health awareness presentation. Everyone is welcome. Dima Sewali Akwaba, and mix the Nawab and the Ghanaian language together. So, as you know, I'm a very natural and traditional and creative being, so I like to incorporate that into every content that I make. So we'll be seeing a lot of different languages, indigenous languages that's used. So during the presentation, for the acknowledgements, I will have a lot of my culture incorporated into it. So let's get into it. So the content I'm going to review for today is an introduction to the Latino community. I'll be giving a gratitude speech and acknowledgements, as well as mental health, the 7 spectrums of mental health, being mental, physical, spiritual, traditional / natural, and creative, social, and economic. I'll be discussing trauma-informed practice, as well as substance use and addiction, harm reduction, and art healing. So I'll be talking about art of liberation, but basically what we do is we provide positive things for unity consciousness, we unite together for system one consciousness as a unity vanguard, and we're a small community. We're very inspired by the Black Panther Party for self-defense, Chakras, Nikola Tesla, David Icke, and Billy Carson. These are very conscious, intelligent people with a different shift of the mindset, like a revolutionary mindset, and I very like that about them. They're not like the typical politics or politics. They're just really genuine people. Our vision is to turn the media around and build a blueprint that helps the collective conscious not be perceived as crazy for being free thinkers. We provide a creative outlet of expression I like to introduce myself. So as I said, my name is Lanika. My artist name is Unity, and I grew up in Toronto, or the upper town, and I'm now living in downtown Toronto by Lakeshore. It's a beautiful area. I love being by the lake. I love reconnecting with nature, and as a very conscious being, or somebody who's on the journey of being even more conscious, day to day, on a day-to-day basis, I feel I am very passionate about maintaining a revolutionary mindset, where I'm trying to focus on not pressure myself into doing something I don't want to do. I'm the type of person to want to be able to be an entrepreneur, be able to own myself rather than just be owned by corporations and everything. So this is why I want to do art liberation, so that I can be able to be a student and a teacher, and to be able to make money off what I love to do, what I'm happy for, and that's building communities, and that's for art healing, and I like incorporating the art and psychology, which is what you do with art therapy, but art healing is a non-licensed practice, which I'll be discussing in a bit, and more in depth. So Spencer, he is my partner as well, and he is an artist, he's a land defender, he's Mohawk, of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and he is an amazing person. And for gratitude, I'm grateful for life, I'm grateful for the earth, the stars and the planet, and for being able to think as a unity consciousness and maintaining the realization that I can do anything. I can be the best that I can be, and I can be the example I want to see, and be the change that I want to see in society. For Green Merchant, I'm grateful for being able to do live streams from them. I do a Unity Conscious stream on Twitch stream. My username is Nanika Easy, lowercase Nanika Easy. It's not in the presentation, but I can incorporate it. For the land acknowledgement, I would like to acknowledge the land we usually know as so-called Canada, taken by the Mohawk word Ganada, as as well as all through the island that stretches across the world. Adayonto, aka Toronto, now known as Toronto, is sovereign territory of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississauga, the Credit River, Chippewa, Métis, First Nations peoples. I would like to acknowledge our matrilineal ancestors in Mexico, sovereign territory of the Aztec, Xomilka, Tlahuica, Acolua, Tlaxcala, Mexica, Mayans, Yucatecs, Quiche, Huasteca, Incas, Atisuyu, the Amazon Jungle, Chichasuyu, Ulasuyu, and Putisuyu. I would like to acknowledge the land of Africa, sovereign territory of the Empire of Ghana, the Mali Empire, Kekan, Igbo, Benin, Empire of Canaan, Ptolemy of Egypt, and the Great Zimbabwe Empire. I would like to say Tlaxclawi, thank you for coming together as a unity consciousness as our ancestors have thousands of years ago. This land we are on has been a meeting place of various indigenous communities, and it's subject to the Different One Spoon and the Tuba Wampum, as well as the Coastal Federation 2D13. These treaties apply to everyone who lives on this land. We are all in the treaty. For mental health, I have 7 spectrums to be able to define mental health. It's not just like one thing, it's like so many aspects of our lives, which is why I think it's important to like maintain all of these 7 spectrums, because without one another then we're kind of like a lost being, and we're kind of like an ignorant species if we don't really like attain all the complexities of what it is to be human. So like being mental, being like the mental aspect, the physical aspect, the spiritual, the traditional, the natural, social, creative, or economic. I have used examples or case studies based on the podcast Bio Hack by Billy Carson and by Elizabeth Hoekstra, and I think that they are 2 amazing individuals as well as their guests who speak upon like quantum entanglement, speak upon like positive thinking and consciousness, and unity consciousness as well is mentioned as a collective, and as well as like predictive programming and how the government divide and conquers the people. And that means all of us people, all of us human beings. I like their perspective because it's not the typical suit and tie CEO, like corporate, trying to like manipulate your information sources type of information. It's like straight up information based on genuity, based on experience, based on facts, and based on research and studies that are indoctrinated and will be perceived by the peer-reviewed articles of mainstream institutions as falsified. You know, you go to fact checks and then they'll probably be one of the like misinterpreted sources, which is all the more reason to give them a shot and really listen to what they're saying and question why fact checking is not really perceiving it as factual. It's because what's factual is controlled by the Zionist media corporations, and that is just a one voice narrative. And I feel like it's important to expand on the horizon of there's just that one voice you hear through Zionism, and just being able to expand your consciousness through other forms of opinions, because opinions are important. They're what create knowledge, and knowledge is experienced every day of every moment, just like you are tuning to now.
That he caused me, you know, I stayed with him for a really, really long period of time because I thought he wasn't cheating on me, and then found out that he was, and that broke me. Like I didn't get out of bed for like 3 weeks. I was just, I felt dead inside. But then something happened. It was like, like I don't have to feel like this, and it really just, it was like boom, and I woke up, and it was really strange how that happened, and it's, you know, the process of the awakening was you know, crazy to me now. But I mean, I started knowing that thoughts control everything. I was like, if I can control my thoughts, then I can control the way I feel. I don't have to feel sad. I can control my thought process. So, you know, that's when I kind of started on the awakening path. And I remember I quit drinking around 31, 32. I quit drugs around that same time.
Wow.
When I quit drugs, it really opened my life up. Like it really brought me my consciousness.
Yeah.
Like I was clear-minded, and it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, I had to do a ton of shadow work, a ton of like, you know, realizing like, you know, you caused all this shit in your life, you know?
Right.
And to take responsibility of your own suffering is a really powerful place to be, and a really conscious place to be.
Yeah.
Because I don't put even the sexual abuse, the rapes, everything, I don't put that on them. You know, I attracted all that into my life.
Yeah.
I caused all that. I carried that energy, and I was in places I had no business being, and you know, I caused it.
Yeah.
I did that.
Right.
So to be able to accept that, it was like, wow, and it was very painful, soberly painful. You know?
That's a powerful thing to accept, because one of the biggest things, the hardest things for people to accept, especially somebody on drugs, alcohol, for example, is to admit that it's them.
Yeah.
So looking in the mirror and seeing your reflection, it's like, oh, and then admitting, it's me. That's a tough thing to do.
Yeah, and then people don't realize, like I mean, people have the victim mentality, which I really never had that, but they woe is me, you know?
Yeah.
No, you gotta switch that up. It's not woe is me. It's you create your reality every day at every second.
Yeah.
You're projecting out. You know, if you feel like, okay, everyone sucks, you know, all these men out here are trash, that's what you're gonna get.
Exactly.
That's what you're gonna get. Like every relationship I had was abusive. They either beat me physically or mentally abused me. And you know, my projection of a man, you know, years ago was like, all these guys are dogs. So of course, that's all I attracted into my life.
Exactly.
So I mean, really, to take responsibility for all of it is really where my journey, like my real conscious journey began after quitting the drugs and being able to really think clearly, because I never thought clearly before, ever. I had to retrain myself how to interact with people, because I was always high.
Yeah.
And you know, they used to call me the life of the party. I was like the extrovert, you know, I was dancing on tables, and everyone would be like, invite her because she's the fun one.
Right.
No, I realized like I'm so introverted.
Wow.
Like I don't like to be around people. Like it gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, so which I was using drugs and alcohol to calm my anxiety down so I could interact. So really, I mean, I had to start teaching myself how to interact with people again.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So to discuss the physical and what it means is having material existence, being perceptible, especially through the senses, and subject to the laws of nature. So the physical aspect of us is like our body and what we wear and just what makes us function and get up in the morning, like how we walk, like what we eat and what we like take into our brains, or what we absorb in our skin, you know, like what cream we use, like it all affects the brain eventually. So like eventually I'll get into like the mind body problem, like locating it. So like working out, like, you know, or like walking in nature, or the nutrition aspect, that's all physical. All of that is physical. And with social media, I feel like there's always stigma towards like how we're supposed to look. So like I don't know if I'm like the one to like have like that physique that's like the typical like social pressure type of body type, but like I personally don't really like give in to the pressures of society. Like I feel like I'm beautiful the way I look, you know, like I love the natural look. Like I'm wearing a little makeup today because like sometimes I feel like it's good for my self-care, and like I don't overdo it. And I mean, I'm not always gonna be wearing makeup. Like I don't always like to wear makeup because like I feel like it gives off like a certain vibe that like I have to look good for somebody, but really I'm looking good for myself. So like every choice that I make now is all for me, and it's not really selfish. It's more like don't have to listen to the expectations of other people when we ourselves know ourselves, and there's nobody out there in the world or universe, even your mom, who knows you better than yourself. You know, we all have different experiences, and I feel like when people around us try to tell us what we are, and we hold on to that thought, and we're like, we absorb more of the external than the internal, and that makes us disconnect from who we are as a human being, or who we are meant to be. And I feel like that is an important part of esteem. And with esteem, I think that you have to love yourself, and you have to focus on goals that are good for you and your body, and kind of adapt to a nutrition diet and a workout diet that fits your physical needs and not just the media's needs. And the media is there to manipulate you as a human being and twist your way of thinking. And I think it's important for us to have a free thought and think for ourselves independently. So this is what our liberation is about. As for the mental, it is relating to the total emotional and intellectual response of an individual to an external reality. So this so-called external reality we live in, I'm pretty sure low-key it could be a matrix. I mean, there's always so many theories about that, but that is just what I believe. I'm not just because of the movie Matrix, but like more like are just self-awareness to an extent in which you're really conscious. You do start to question your own reality and the way the system functions and how people are been oppressed by the system, and that is a big factor towards why I think that the Matrix is a Matrix. But sticking to the mental aspect, it's important to locate the mind and body problem. The mind and the body are two parts of a whole, and the mind itself sends messages to your body, and our emotional and intellectual response reacts and affects the physical aspect. And so when we get older, or like if there's a certain time in our lives in which we develop cancer, we develop diabetes, it is because our mind has been sending messages that is perceived by the attitude of the person's consciousness through problems. And if we keep on piling problems and just see the negative part of it rather than just trying to focus on the positive, it festers into a sickness, an illness, a physicality. It manifests into a physical thing, something that has been through a thought process in your own brain has been manifested to an illness, or it can manifest into successes, into prosperity, into abundance, into good health. And with the mind-body problem, when you can locate it, you can focus on what the problem is, and you can apply an intention that is based on focusing on solutions and on positive intent. So it's definitely important to protect your optimism when it comes to like changing your thoughts. Like providing a certain change in your ways of thinking is an important way, is an important step towards your mental health. So spirituality in terms of the mental health perspective is the connectedness between the mind and the body. The spirituality is the awareness that our mind is connected to the body, and the system neglects that part so severely to the point where we are detached from our own spirituality that is also connected to our natural traditional self. And it helps us to fulfill our purpose and to find that duality, that divinity within ourselves that is there, because with every individual we attain a certain light and dark duality within all of us, and with every action there's a reaction. Our body, mind, and soul are the pinnacle towards that reaction towards an action. And with mental health, I feel like there's a stigmatization and a detachment towards who we really are, and that's why people experience mental health issues under the clinical aspect that is very colonized and has a lot to do with the labeling that is actually a mislabeling of people's problems that is channeled as a mental health issue, like bipolar, like schizophrenia, PTSD, anxiety, depression, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. I feel like that is decalcifying the third eye, and it detaches us from our clairvoyance. And really that's all it is that there's a lack of control with our clairvoyant mind, in our spirit, in our body, and the system creates this illusion that when you are attuned to your spirituality, it becomes a mental health issue that you need to take a pill for, and in which it, in the long run, is a long-term consequence that has severe consequences like cancer and diabetes, heart conditions, name it. So like, I feel like spirituality to me is a unity consciousness, and it's just one of the 6 concepts of mental health that is really stigmatized in our society. So the important thing is to look within yourself without judgment, without character, more like with just the be part, the I am part, the I think, I do, I know the self. And that's like from the root chakra, which is at the base here where your pelvic is, your pelvic base, to your sacral, which is above that, solar plexus, your heart, your throat chakra, your third eye chakra, and your crown chakra, and the other 2 above it. All of these need to be aligned in order to reconnect with your traditional and spiritual being. And it's a step-by-step process, just like with anything else. There's a step-by-step process towards attaining that sense of spiritual self. Suffering is a part of joy and happiness and life, so is death. And a lot of people are really uncomfortable with that death. They're uncomfortable with that suffering. They're uncomfortable with the stress and the fear. Yet still, all those 4 things, the fear, the stress, the death, the suffering, they are all interconnected as a way of being and the process. It's part of the process. And when you learn to accept that it is a part of the process, it becomes comfortable, and you become okay with that. And it's important to balance both the light and the dark, as I said before, because without darkness there is no light, and without light there is no darkness. Now, in terms of mental health, one of the things that have been a great therapy for me is actually, surprisingly, coming back to your traditions and reclaiming them. Now, a lot of people who don't understand this concept would say that it is a waste of time, and our ancestors are dead now. But guess what? They're not. We are channeling them now. We have their eyes, and our eyes are passed on from generations to generations. And with every moment we are channeling our ancestors, and our ancestors are always watching our every move, no matter where or what we do. That is just how it is. I don't believe in ghosts or anything. I believe in what our past peoples were trying to fight for, and that was their own culture as well. And for me personally, that is what I'm trying to be able to accomplish and find purpose in, and seek purpose within, is that coming back to our traditions, coming back to who we are as natural and traditional beings. And I feel like it creates a certain fulfillment in which nature, the reconnection of our natural environment also does too. Like, it creates this ping, this like high frequency level of understanding by the higher vibrations, higher frequencies, higher energies that have everything to do with our natural and traditional selves. And that to me is a really great therapy as well. Like grounding practices too, you know, it's something you can easily do like outside of your door, you know, like planting your feet on that dirt, planting your feet in the sand, in the grass, in your gardens, you know, that is a sense of therapy that no counselor, no therapist, no clinical psychologist can actually measure and create solutions for, because you are the solution. And it's your choice to not create more problems, but rather create solutions. I also feel like the land people connection is important in that way, in terms of grounding practices, because they have a lot to do with the mind, body, and the spirit, and our kind of like that reconnection towards our knowledge of self. It leads us towards it. It gives us a little push and an experience towards who we can be and who we really are in a society that doesn't give us time to think about these questions, doesn't give us time to question, when really the power of the question is actually where it's at. The system that I'm speaking upon is the government. It is the corporations. It is the exact power that is manipulating our mind, body, and spirit to become something it is not. And now it is nowadays everyday people's comfortabilities. And, you know, it's an addicting mentality that is mostly festering in the cities. And it becomes a thought process in which we are detached from our natural selves, our traditional selves, and our spiritual selves. This is the aspect of ourselves in which we get lost, we become confused, and there is this fear that conquers love when it comes to the negative aspect of non-spiritual dominance. And it also has to do with the constant triggering of our synthetic system, our atomic system that has to do with physical parts of ourselves as well. And you know, everything is energy. There's energy towards the fear that we get used to and perceive as love, and then that fear, it becomes a belief in which, if you are detached by your own natural traditional self, you become the reality of your spiritual self, and that's kind of what the system is. Creativity has always been the go-to coping mechanism in mental health. Any kind of problems that are stress, I always circle back to my art. I feel like it's important to, you know, do art in any way, any visual art. Music can be building, like architects and stuff. It could be clay sculpture, like videography, you know, filmography. It can be makeup artists and stuff, you know. It can be becoming a veterinarian and designing clothes. It can be anything. It can be artisan. It can be making food, you know. Making food is an art, you know, no matter what. Even if it just looks like a pile of poop or something, it's still art. you know. But the creativity aspect is the quality that we all have that is an intellectual and initiated as an intellectual factor that emits a certain emotional response depending on our intentions with the art. It is an innovation that enacts on an idea of original thinking towards our own expression of our lifestyles and our traumas and our freedoms, our happiness, you know, our joy, our interests, our cause, our revolutionary cause. And it gives us power to be an individual, the power to have free will, to be a wild child, have free thought. Like, all of these things is what has helped me to become what I'm meant to be. And that's what art does. Social is basically identified or defined as the identity and the structural factors of the so-called norms of mainstream society. Identity specifically, you know, like the age, race, geographic location, class, etc. And the structural part is like our job, is our what school we went to, you know, like whether or not you go to church or something, you know what I mean, like the transportation that you use, whether it's a car or TTC or something, like all of those things are structural and identity factors of the social concept of mental health. And this weighs a lot on people. I would say this is the second last important thing because it is a stress factor that we choose, and that being in an urban environment, being in a systematic dependency environment is what it does to people, you know, and it wreaks havoc on the mind, body, and spirit to the point where we're just numb to it. And that sense of Maya and the illusion of that we have to depend on the city, on the system, is where reality fades, and it just is or it is either an is or is not, you know, like either you're working or not. Like there's that stigmatization of working in which people have thinking that the 9-to-5 job is the only way to live, in which respectfully that is what people choose, but I do not choose that. We're all comfortable with our own beliefs, and there are people who are comfortable with their own traumas, and they do not themselves acknowledge it as a trauma, you know. So in that case, in terms of mental health, it's important to focus on positive thinking, even during the tumultuous times, the most tumultuous times. And it's important to do better than you did yesterday, no matter what part of society you're living in, the agricultural or the urban, you know, the indigenous reserve, all these places, doesn't matter, you know, just do better than you did yesterday.
Body and brain can bounce back
Amazing.
from.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And so now that you had that awakening, which gradually took shape, it didn't happen instantly, but it gradually took shape from the birth of your child up and through, you know, a few years after. And now you're gobbling up all this information, this knowledge, this wisdom. You're seeking all this ascension knowledge, and you're working on yourself. You're using technology to help you train your brain and correct some of the errors in your brain. What you know, besides that, what else did you feel like with the money part? Because now I see you as a very successful person. Mm-hmm. So how did you convert the street hustling into corporate hustling?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. Like it's almost the same thing, you know. Well, if you dip into specific, you know, ways to make legal money. Right. I mean, the chef world, it was fun because it helped my creativity, but it didn't pay me the way I wanted to be paid. So I ended up leaving that, and I became a real estate agent. And you know, with felonies, like you're not even allowed to get your license. Exactly. So I had to like jump through crazy hoops to be able to get my license, which I ended up doing.
Nice.
Congrats. Thank God. So yeah, I mean, it's a street hustle.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, I'm gonna sell these 12 houses over here. Like, it's just like street hustling.
Yeah.
So I became actually really, really good at real estate quick. And so, I made good money doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And I found out what my talent was, and it was like, building, like building things.
Yeah.
Because not only was I working real estate and closing deals, I started recruiting agents and, created my own real estate team.
Right.
And at one time I had almost 30 agents that I was.
That's a lot of agents.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, managing. I would actually go into strip clubs and like pull these strippers out of that and, really mentor them into becoming a real estate agent.
Amazing.
And yeah, I was successful at doing it with a bunch of girls. And it was like the pretty girl team, which I recruited. And eventually towards the end of that part of my life, I was recruiting, both sexes. But yeah, I found out that I was really good at building things.
Yeah.
So that's really like where, I found my talent. Like I built, I had a business partner at this time, and I helped build his company and, took it up, I think 400% within the first year.
Amazing.
So, and then I got behind this other company and just used all my connections, luckily through modeling and acting, I've made crazy amounts of connections through the entertainment industry. So I used to just pull connections and pull people together to make really, really great, grand things happen.
Right.
So, that's kind of where I started, like, taking my street mentality and turning it into, corporate mentality.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's huge because a lot of people need to hear this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think that they're, and they're geniuses too, but they think they're stuck in the mode of I can only street hustle.
Right.
When you can really take the same exact knowledge, the same exact wisdom. The recipe is always a recipe. I don't care what the industry is.
Yeah.
Illegal or legal, it doesn't matter. The recipe is going to be the same, and you can convert that recipe into a legal enterprise, which you've done very well. And and I personally know some of the things that you've done and seen some of the businesses that you've built and grown, and the contacts. What a lot of people don't do when they're in your position is they don't take note of create the contact list, the database. They don't build those relationships. So they go through this cycle of the modeling. They go through the cycle of the partying and meeting all these famous people and everything else. And then when it's over, it's over. They can't even call somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
You kept all those people. You're in your phone. You can text them. You can call them. They're contacting you on a consistent basis. You were actually really marinated and cultivated your contact database.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah. No. Even throughout like all of my crazy, people liked me, I was a cool person. I've always been very nice, like just nice. My intentions are never to fuck anybody over. And it's never been that throughout my whole life. Like even through hustling, at one time I was hustling Oxycontins and I was ruining this guy's life. And I'm like, his girl came to me and was like, yo, you're fucking his life up. And I'm like, I was heartbroken. Yeah. And I stopped immediately because my intent, my heart has always been like, I want to be good and I want people to be good and I want to be good to people. So even though, I had all that stuff going on, I still kept relationships because I was authentically my fucked up self.
Yeah, right.
So, and I was good to people. So yeah, I've been able to keep those contacts and I took this one business from, I really, really helped this one business grow like very, very large. And so I started realizing like these contacts that I have is gold, like real gold. Like I can really do things and maneuver different ways and put people together, like I said before, to really grow things into the magnitude that I see,
Right.
And I have a specific talent in looking at certain things and knowing what I can do with that.
Right.
And like I don't stop. So like once I have a goal, I'm going to accomplish that goal. There's no ifs and buts about it. Like I'm going to do what I need to do. Every single goal in my life that I've ever had, I've accomplished it in every single industry that I've ever been in.
Fantastic.
So it's a mindset though. Now that I know and I'm conscious, it's your mindset. You're projecting this life. If you believe you can, you can. If you have any doubt in your mind, then that doubt is gonna pull you back.
Right.
And I don't have that.
Yeah.
So
the economic factor is the last aspect towards mental health, and it is the practical or the the industrial significance. of its uses towards the material resources, and how the use of capitalism has affected the stream of resources, of just being able to live in a home, being able to have food on the table. All of this is impacted by the economic status in a city. It is a class perspective, a way of thinking that segregates people, and it can weigh change. When you find the ability to change your own mind and your own body awareness and spiritual awareness, it really does shift your thinking into prioritizing your sense of self before the money. Now, what is trauma-informed care? Trauma-informed care is the practice in which we integrate communication and acknowledge the trauma, and we are aware of that trauma. The trauma is either a past, present, or reoccurring event in which the person experiences a crisis and has a reaction to it. That is trauma. The event itself is the trauma, as well as vicarious trauma. When we tune into a lot of the horror stories of the media, that becomes our experiences with vicarious trauma. And what trauma does to the body is that it constantly lights up our cortisol, our stress hormones, and it builds up to the point where there's not enough dopamine in our body to overcome the fieriness of trauma. And it creates a unpredictable emotional, physical, sometimes threatening or violent response, and an uncontrollable fear in which that crisis may occur once again. So, the barrier towards people who experience trauma is that they blame themselves for that trauma, and they believe that they are defined by that trauma, which is not true. What is true is that the trauma did happen and it did occur, and it is your choice on your outlook towards the trauma. There is a step-by-step process that helps us to integrate trauma-informed care, and that is realizing that you are not your trauma. Trauma-informed care is also solution-focused. It is solution-oriented, because when we just focus on the problems of the trauma, that is when we are stuck with the trauma and the traumatic experience, and that reoccurring emotional response towards that trauma is inevitable, and it becomes another fear and stress that is impacted by a lot of our organs. Is impacted by our liver, it is impacted by our kidney, our heart, our spleen. It is impacted by the autonomic and the sympathetic system, in which it triggers our fear and our flight response. And people who are in constant alert from when, let's say, that they are walking to school and they come to class and the teacher blames them for not focusing, when really the core issue is the constant triggering of the fear-flight response towards a trauma that they may be experiencing or have experienced or continue to experience. And with that, there is a constant evolution in our brain, in which if it constantly collects the data, because our brain is a supercomputer, it is its own organic AI, and our thought process is easily influenced, and that's what makes human beings weak in a way. Our consciousness can absorb everything, and it can come out and all in once as one whole thought process in 1 millisecond. And that, especially at a certain age, when you're 40, because or like middle age, but like when you are a child, you become closer to the creator. You become closer to what your consciousness is and what it is attuned to when you are born into this world. And, you know, when it comes to childhood trauma, that fear-triggered response is way more stronger in our adult years, which is why the affirmations of positivity, like I love myself and everything, is just as important as an adult as it is a child.
At some point.
Yes, you will.
So Tajay, so for people that are listening, like, do you have any suggestions for how people should deal with their issues? Like, let's say, I don't know, their anger cup is overflowing and they just keep popping off at people. Do you have any suggestions for those people?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about body work, which is something I do on a daily basis. You know, I deal with a lot of hypervigilance. And for people who don't know what that means, hypervigilance is basically when you're in a state of fight or flight, like you said.
Yep.
You know, I'm always ready for some stuff to crack. Like, I'm always like, you know, I had a lot of trouble, like, sitting with my back to, like, the doorways, and, like, you know, I'm outside and I'm always looking around, and, like, you know, just from a life of, you know, the street life, you know, it comes with a lot, you know, and that can affect how you react to things when you're in fight or flight. You know, that volcano, like I said, I always say the volcano, it can explode. Yeah. And the way I deal with that is I try to notice where I'm feeling things in my body before it hits my brain cognitively. For me, and you know, that's sitting with myself and, all right, I'm upset right now. Where am I feeling this? You know, for me, it was like in my chest, you know, or sometimes I would feel it in my shoulders. like things like that. So I kind of got familiar with where my biological triggers were at, because once you're able to track those things, not only are you able to address them, but you're also able to tell yourself and tell your brain consciously, like, wait a minute, oh, I'm feeling triggered right now. I need to breathe. I need to chill, you know? But by knowing where those triggers were at, I'm a big fan of breathing, like everybody should be, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean consciously breathing.
Yeah.
Like, so, and there's a lot of different, you know, mindfulness stuff that works. There's a lot of different breathing exercises you can do. Me personally, just to keep it simple for people who may not know what some of these things are, when you're doing like controlled breathing, you know, you might inhale for like 4 to 5 seconds. You exhale for like 5 to 7 seconds. And while you're doing that, mentally, I would direct those breaths to those places where I'm feeling that discomfort. Like I would visualize it in my head. Like I would visualize the breath going to my shoulders, to my chest. You know, I'm inhaling the calmness, the positivity. I'm exhaling all the craziness and the drama, and, you know, and so it's a biological and mental exercise that connects you. You know, it connects your mind and body, because a lot of times people are disconnected from their bodies, which with clients that I see, especially clients who have faced a lot of trauma, when you ask them what's wrong with them, they know that they feel mad, but they can't tell you why. A lot of times, or they can't verbalize what they're feeling. You know, they might just be like, I don't know, I just feel like shit, I just feel crazy, I don't know.
Right.
You know, you get a lot of that, and that's because they're dealing with a disconnection between their mind and body.
Wow.
You know, so doing exercises to connect those two things is what I do a lot to address my own trauma. You know, of things that I've been through, and, you know, becoming one with the universe around you. You know, and with the spirituality around you. You know, focusing on the ambience. You know what I mean? It might be the birds chirping, it might be the cars passing by, you know, it might be the wind, it might be whatever can take your mind off of that anger, or that, just to know, okay, I'm okay right now. Because for me, hypervigilance, being ready for things to crack, sometimes I got to remind myself I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Right.
Yes.
And those are the things that I do to do that.
That's so amazing, because I swear to God, how many times you heard me say that? Like, I do the same exact thing.
Yes, you do.
And it's really just awareness. Like, whenever I feel myself getting like, you know, like upset or anxious, I go to my body. I'm like, well, where am I feeling this in my body? And then that immediately like displaces your, you know, like the freak out that's about to come, because now you're putting awareness on yourself, right? So it it places that energy a little bit. And then when you do that, you can kind of like, you know, tell yourself, and I tell my body and my brain, I'm safe right now. Everything is fine. You know, I'm always like telling myself, I'm good. Everything is good, body. Like, you don't need to be freaking out. You're safe. You know, I've literally talked at some point.
Yes, you will.
So Tajay, so for people that are listening, like, do you have any suggestions for how people should deal with their issues? Like, let's say, I don't know, their anger cup is overflowing and they just keep popping off at people. Do you have any suggestions for those people?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about body work, which is something I do on a daily basis. You know, I deal with a lot of hypervigilance. And for people who don't know what that means, hypervigilance is basically when you're in a state of fight or flight, like you said.
Yep.
You know, I'm always ready for some stuff to crack. Like, I'm always like, you know, I had a lot of trouble like sitting with my back to like the doorways, and like, you know, I'm outside and I'm always looking around, and like, you know, just from a life of, you know, what the street life, you know, it comes with a lot, you know, and that can affect how you react to things when you're in fight or flight. You know, that volcano, like I said, I always say the volcano, it can explode.
Yeah.
And the way I deal with that is I try to notice where I'm feeling things in my body before it hits my brain cognitively. For me, and you know, that's sitting with myself and, all right, I'm upset right now. Where am I feeling this? You know, for me, it was like in my chest, you know, or sometimes I would feel it in my shoulders. like things like that. So I kind of got familiar with where my biological triggers were at, because once you're able to track those things, not only are you able to address them, but you're also able to tell yourself and tell your brain consciously, like, wait a minute, oh, I'm feeling triggered right now. I need to breathe. I need to chill, you know? But by knowing where those triggers were at, I'm a big fan of breathing, like everybody should be, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean consciously breathing.
Yeah.
Right. So, and there's a lot of different, you know, mindfulness stuff that works. There's a lot of different breathing exercises you can do. Me personally, just to keep it simple for people who may not know what some of these things are, when you're doing like controlled breathing, you know, you might inhale for like 4 to 5 seconds. You exhale for like 5 to 7 seconds. And while you're doing that, mentally, I would direct those breaths to those places where I'm feeling that discomfort. Like I would visualize it in my head. Like I would visualize the breath going to my shoulders, to my chest. You know, I'm inhaling the calmness, the positivity. I'm exhaling all the craziness and the drama, and, you know, and so it's a biological and mental exercise that connects you. You know, it connects your mind and body, because a lot of times people are disconnected from their bodies, which with clients that I see, especially clients who have faced a lot of trauma. When you ask them what's wrong with them, they know that they feel mad, but they can't tell you why a lot of times, or they can't verbalize what they're feeling. You know, they might just be like, I don't know, I just feel like shit. I just feel crazy. I don't know.
Right.
You know, you get a lot of that. And that's because they're dealing with a disconnection between their mind and body.
Wow.
You know, so doing exercises to connect those two things is what I do a lot to address my own trauma, you know, of things that I've been through, and, you know, becoming one with the universe around you, you know, and with the spirituality around you, you know, focusing on the ambience. You know what I mean? It might be the birds chirping, it might be the cars passing by, you know, it might be the wind, it might be whatever can take your mind off of that anger, or that, just to know, okay, I'm okay right now. Because for me, hypervigilance, being ready for things to crack, sometimes I got to remind myself I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Right.
Yes.
And those are the things that I do to do that.
That's so amazing, because I swear to God, how many times you heard me say that? Like, I do the same exact thing.
Yes, you do.
And it's really just awareness. Like, whenever I feel myself getting like, you know, like upset or anxious, I go to my body. I'm like, well, where am I feeling this in my body? And then that immediately like displaces your, you know, like the freak out that's about to come, because now you're putting awareness on yourself, right? So it places that energy a little bit. And then when you do that, you can kind of like, you know, tell yourself, and I tell my body and my brain, I'm safe right now. Everything is fine. You know, I'm always like telling myself, I'm good. Everything is good, body. Like, you don't need to be freaking out. You're safe. You know, I've literally taught breathing deeply is like freaking just major, because not only are you really like feeding those areas like energetically, but you're actually stimulating your vagus nerve, which will shift your body back to parasympathetic. So like that, I mean, that's key. Like I do the exact same thing, Tajay.
Yeah. And that's dope that that a lot of people don't even know about, you know, the vagus nerve and all that, you know, that's something that needs to be learned about. You know, this education should start early.
Absolutely.
You know, as far as those places in your body, you know, and in your brain.
Yes.
You know, all those different parts of your brain that control that. You know, I also tell people too, depending on the trauma that you're dealing with, you always want to, if you're dealing with a certain type of trauma, you know, because a lot of the trauma we're talking about are things having to do with, like I said, coming up in, you know, in violence or, you know, traumatic environments and things like that. Some people who go through, let's say, like sexual trauma, right? When they're doing these things, I would advise them to seek a professional when they're doing that, because certain types of trauma, which I tell other professionals the same thing. You know, you have to be careful about guiding people to their bodies, because if they went through some type of bodily trauma, especially sexually, they might not be ready for what the body's going to tell them yet. So definitely, depending on your trauma, definitely seek the help of somebody, you know, like yourself or like myself or other people that know about these things so that they can guide you through it correctly.
Yeah. I mean, you can literally re-traumatize yourself because your brain doesn't know what's now, then, real, fake, you know. So like you can re-traumatize yourself if something does come up, which I've done to myself before doing some modalities. So I've re-traumatized myself a couple times. But I mean, you know, it happens. Another like
you know, just a sidebar for people who, you know, they might be going through different types. You know, there's so many different types of trauma. You know what I mean? So it's something definitely that they should think about.
Yeah. I mean, there's all, and no one leaves this life unscathed of trauma. You know, everybody. I mean, coming through the birth canal as a baby, you got trauma into your head. You know, physical trauma. Like no matter what you've been through, if you've had the most perfect quote unquote life or the worst life, you know, everybody has experienced trauma, and everybody carries it in their body somehow, because everything, thoughts manifest physically, always, no matter what. So, like,
and sometimes, and what makes it crazy is that we're not even aware of those thoughts sometimes, you know, but the limbic system is completely, you know, how I can't forget about now. I'm trying to think of the name of this book that talks about. I read it early in my education. This is the first time I kind of learned that concept of that unconscious thought process, that unconscious trauma that is there, you know, in your body. You know, the body never forgets. I think that might have been the name of it. You know, your body never forgets. You know, what your brain does. Your brain is wired to disassociate. Because your brain is just on some like, all right, we got to get through the day.
Survival.
So your brain is like a smart computer where it's like, all right, I'm just going to throw all this to the back of the unconscious brain. So you're sitting there like, I'm not thinking about that. I'm cool. But your body is thinking about it and your brain is thinking about it, and it comes out.
Yeah, well, it manifests physically and physical ailments like cancer and tumors and all type of different, you know, autoimmune disease. I mean, if you're incongruent and you haven't dealt with your own stuff, you know, and it's going to manifest in your body. It's ease.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's why I don't recommend a lot of people watch traumatic news. You know, the news, even if you have the most incredible life since you were born and you haven't had any problems, you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, you're sitting there watching mainstream news all day with all the drama and the trauma, it's going into your body.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. That's, you know, that's what we call third person PTSD. You know, a lot of people don't know that you can get PTSD from watching somebody else go through something.
Yep, you can.
That's right.
You definitely can.
So real. So real.
Wow. Yeah.
What do you think about, are there programs out there for kids to start acquiring the knowledge of this kind of information at an early age? Because if kids had this, we'd probably have a lot less temper tantrums and kids acting out and things like that.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Teach your kids emotional intelligence.
Well, what I do, these kids are so technologically sound. Transmitters are doing their job. You know, how the learning parts of your brain are working. You know, you want these things at optimal levels, and the only way to do that is to show kids how to deal with their trauma and the things that they're going through in a productive manner. Because a lot of the times, like you said, they're acting out because of this unconscious trauma that they're going through.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we definitely, you know, that should be a goal. We got to put something together, like you say, through an app, maybe even that just exists. And, you know, even on the other side of the coin, a lot of police officers, they need to be on these programs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Such a good point. Such a good point. Because a lot of these police officers, you know, a lot of them have never been around the type of things that we grew up around, a lot of them. And they're out there scared out of their mind.
Right.
And so they do stupid stuff.
Reacting in fight or flight. And so you can't, like, you're literally not functioning. Your brain is functioning at 70% when you're in fight or flight. So you can't make the best decisions at that time. And our police officers are the ones that need to be making the best decisions at all times, because they're the ones holding the guns, the weapons. So mental health and the awareness of it and these practices, they need to be implemented in everything.
Yep.
Everybody needs it, not just kids, not just police officers. Everybody needs it to make our world a better place. Yep. If you see the state of the world, I mean, that's just the manifestation of the collective of our minds. And we are in a hot mess right now. I mean, like, it's just, I mean, there's too much unconsciousness going on right now. So, I mean, it needs to be.
You see it, just like you said, it's manifesting everywhere.
And it's worse now because of the whole pandemic. So now people are really in fight or flight and they're stuck there. They're
isolated.
Yes.
A lot of them.
Yes. And it's like, you know, you see it. I mean, that concert that people just got trampled and stabbed. I don't even know what happened. Yeah. But I mean, the flights, I mean, there's drama and these things that are manifesting everywhere. Yeah. And that's because people are dysregulated. And they don't know how to regulate their systems. They're not calm. They're just reacting.
They are reacting, yeah.
Yeah,
that's wild.
So all of this stuff is necessary in society because, I mean, that's the only way we're going to get better, you know? I mean,
absolutely. That's the only way.
I feel like nowadays that generations are getting better because back when I was a kid, you know, like parents were like, oh, man up, you know, stop crying, like stop that whining, stop that like man up. It was always man up for little boys, you know? And now I think it's shifting a little bit because people are becoming more aware because that's teaching kids to just stuff their emotions and not feel, right? So now they're really going to be jacked up because they're not addressing how they really, really feel and they can't get the emotion out. So that's going to manifest and it's going to just, you know, be stuffed and then their cups are going to be too full and they're going to be acting out because there's nowhere else for that emotion to go. It's just gonna, you know, go.
Yeah, it's gotta come out. It's gonna come out at some point. That's why you have to address, you know, and it's a hard thing to do. That's why I named my soul healing as gangster because facing yourself is probably low key the most gangster thing you're gonna do in life.
Exactly. Yes. Like these people walk around like these gangsters walk. I'm hard, you know. I'm not gonna show no emotion. I'm hard, right? But really, no, you the softest man. You just a softie. Because what's really hard is being, you know, congruent with your emotion and being vulnerable and going to the scary, dark places to really look at yourself like, you know, maybe I wasn't right in that situation. Maybe I should address this issue I may have. You know, that's vulnerability. That's gangster. That's hard.
Yeah.
Not
exactly.
These, you know, I'm hard. Come on.
Yeah, right. And that's what we need. That's what my whole point of that show is to show that it's gangster to show these emotions and be in control of them. That's what's gangster, you know what I mean? And it's scary, you know, it's scary to face yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's something that we have to do. Have to do it, especially if we're gonna move forward with anything we're trying to do. You know what I mean? If any movements that we start to try to change things, or any battle for equality, anything, whether it's economic equality, social equality, you know, civil equality, any of these things, we're gonna have to have our minds together. We're gonna have to have our mind and bodies together with ourselves, so that we can work with other people to accomplish those things. Otherwise, they're just gonna use the divide and conquer thing like they always do. And it's gonna be too easy for them to do because, like you said, negatively. Is it affecting it negatively? If these things are affecting that negatively, then you have a problem. Yeah. If you're like smoking weed and you're cool and you're still healthy, you're still got healthy relationships, you know, it's not affecting your money, by all means, hey man, Bob Marley it up. You feel me? You know, but when it gets to a point where it starts affecting those things, then you have to worry about addressing those things, because we all have different predispositions. Some people have addictive personalities. Some people can't do nothing. They can't do any of those vices because it leads to other more dangerous vices.
Yeah.
Right? So I try to approach every client or every person that I see individually, and just that's why you can't compare yourself to other people. You gotta know yourself.
Know yourself. That is so important. So important. Know for yourself. Like for me personally, because I was like super addicted to pills back in the day. So like I could never, ever, no matter what type of anything happens in my life, like I'm not going to take narcotics. Not ever. Because I know myself. Like I'm just not going to go down that road, because I'm not going to fall into that trap again, you know. But that's knowing myself. So somebody else could be fine with that stuff, you know, but not me.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's a big thing. You know, again, it always comes to that same conclusion. Like, yo, really get to know yourself. People are so scared of themselves. Like, get to know you.
Well, they're really scared of the emotion and really like you know, like you were saying it earlier, like people that know about mental health or are in the profession, like you expect those people, you know, the conditioning from society looks at those people like we're just supposed to be super happy and just never like upset or mad. But it's the opposite. It's the opposite of that, because in order to get over something, to go through something, you have to literally go through it and feel it all, everything. Like I sit in depression and I'm like, I'm freaking depressed. And I will sit and I'll cry and I'll just observe my body. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm fine and I'm safe, but I'm freaking depressed and I'm sad. And I'm just going to sit here in my sadness. And like, I had to do that a couple times. But in doing that, like when I look back at those memories now, or those issues that I had to get over, there's no emotional charge in my body anymore. So I can talk about those things, and I've moved past it because I was able to feel every single emotion through it. You know, but people, when they stuff their emotions and they run from their emotions, it just gets stuck in your body physically, and it's going to come out, you know, your cup will get full, and then you'll start acting out in other ways, you know? So, I mean, it's really just being able to be, you know, like in balance with your emotions, you know, be depressed, be upset, but don't stay there, you know, don't stay there, move through it.
In process, what you're talking about is processing. You got to process. You know, one of the things that they make you do in school is get a therapist. They make you do that. Like, you know, I had to, when I was getting my master's degree, my master's is in marriage and family therapy. My doctorate is in clinical psychology. What I appreciate about my master's education was that they made me go get a therapist. Like that was part of the curriculum. Was I had to go see a therapist. And, you know, that was so helpful for me, not just with addressing myself, but just helping me get through school, helping me get through life. You know what I'm saying? And knowing what it was to be on the other side of that chair. Because that's the thing. This is all about perspective when you're helping people. Is everybody has their own perspective on things, and you got to appreciate everybody's perspective. So me being the client in that situation gave me the perspective of what it is to be on that side of the chair, and understanding that it's normal. I don't have to be perfect to help people, you know, and people need to stop looking at mental health or therapy or any of these things as like a goal orientated thing. I don't have a goal of being perfect. I don't have a goal of this is where I'm getting to and this is when I'm gonna be at my optimal mental, you know, capacity. I don't look at it like that. I look at it as an eternal process. This is something I'm going to keep doing and keep getting better. Just like y'all said, you know, always learning, always knowing that you can learn more. You know, that's kind of how you got to look at therapy. It's not a race to get to the finish line. You know, it's a journey that really never stops. Like I said, I'm still dealing with my own stuff, but I think that's what makes me a dope clinician. Is that I'm still going through my stuff. And while I'm going through my stuff, I can share with you how I'm dealing with these things and share my real life experiences and my own difficulties.
That he caused me, you know, I stayed with him for a really, really long period of time because I thought he wasn't cheating on me, and then found out that he was, and that broke me. Like I didn't get out of bed for like 3 weeks. I was just, I felt dead inside. But then something happened. It was like, like I don't have to feel like this, and it really just, it was like boom, and I woke up, and it was really strange how that happened, and it's, you know, the process of the awakening was.
Substance use and addiction is defined as the coping mechanism portrayed with conscious and unconscious biases, dogmas, and stigmatisms. Examples are cannabis, alcohol, Percocet, fentanyl, opioids, clonazepam, and from the colonial perspective, it is an oppression towards indigenous peoples around the world, really, and it is a war on people rather than just the drugs itself. A lot of prescriptions, whether it's like through physical or mental health, has always been prescribed since the 40s. It is basically experimental drugs, even though they say that there is research done. The FDA covers up a lot of the studies that is partaken in, and they've hidden away a lot of the unethical experiments as well in the media. And the pharmaceutical industry themselves are a legal gang, no different than what you call so-called illegal drug dealers. They're no different. They give away drugs and people overdose on it either way, you know. So honestly, what is the difference? Like, there is absolutely no difference between the two. One wants to profit on meds, the other wants to self-medicate and do better for themselves and actually heal themselves. The pharmaceutical industry does not want to heal people. The pharmaceutical industry is set up to create more problems on the long run so that people can continue to remain dependent on these pharmaceuticals. Harm reduction is basically self-medication used safely with safety precaution and procedures. It minimizes negative social consequences associated with various human behaviors, either legal or illegal. Now, art healing is integrating a creative means of expression to overcome the adverse experiences of trauma or traumas. It focuses on seeing the beauty of the world rather than just the dirtiness of it. It ignites the divine within that is blocked by latching onto negativity. It's an alternative to deal with trauma that's usually like the typical clinical services and everything, prescribing people the drugs and everything, but this is a more safer approach towards healing, and that is art healing. That is an alternative healing, just like herbal medicines, just like meditation, just like energy medicine, which I think is something to really research and study upon if you're considering that. It's an original way to confront your demons and accept that there's